Hey guys, welcome back to UB3. As promised, after my last post on the tips for job hunting, I said that I would share about the story about how I got my current position here in Southern California. So you can read the full story on my blog itself at ub3.com, but just to kind of give you some of the highlights here, I, in my last year of residency, was supposed to do a fun trip with my friends. Kind of, we were going to go to a conference. It was going to be paid for by my program. And then at the start of the academic year, actually, they ended up changing the rules. Everything kind of shifted in my program at that time, and they changed the rules to where you could no longer go to a conference just for fun. You either had to be presenting or the conference had to be in the contiguous United States, and it had to be purely academic. And so that was very limiting in terms of like where we could go and what we could attend. And so after a lot of changes and switches, I had switched to another concert. Then I was told I couldn't go to that because one of my friends had to go to that. And so then all this time and debate later, I ended up going to the Practice Management Conference in Atlanta. And the reason I ended up going to that was twofold. One, I was doing a fellowship in perioperative management, so it aligned with my career goals for the future. And then it was the only other academic conference left for me to choose from at the time that these conversations were happening, which was like sometime early winter. And so some of the bigger conferences that we have in anesthesia had already happened. And so in terms of what was left, this was kind of all I had going for me. So I ended up going to that conference. A friend of mine came down to visit with me, so I wouldn't be alone. This is a friend of mine from not residency, just from school. And so I was hanging out with her that first night, and then to kind of give you a little bit of backdrop of where I was at this point in time, because it was my last year of residency. I was finishing up some of my specialty rotations. It was the dead of winter, and this was in January, and then late January, early February is when we take our yearly in-training exam. And so for anyone who's listening who's not in medicine, that's basically an annual exam that you take in every specialty to kind of see where you're at in terms of your knowledge within your specialty. And it kind of also helps you gear up and figure out where your weaknesses are and how much you need to study for either the following year, or in my case, I used it as a gauge to see where the gaps were in my knowledge when it came to studying for boards, which I was going to take that summer. So anyway, so I was kind of studying a lot for that. I was working really long hours. I was on a hard rotation. And then I go to this conference, and we get there the night before. My friend meets me, and of course, like I haven't seen her in a while, so we decide to like go out a little bit, have some time together. And so then the next morning, I get up early to get ready so I can register, and I'm exhausted. I'm so sleep deprived. I'm so tired. I'm so hungry. I desperately need coffee. But I somehow managed to take a shower, blow dry and straighten my hair, which was a lot longer back then, put on a suit, and then I go downstairs to register because I hadn't registered yet. And I'm like in a haze. My brain is completely foggy. I'm so tired. But I registered. It took like 2 seconds. Grabbed me some coffee, and I sat down. And I was sitting down at this table by myself. Like hardly anyone else was there. It was a Friday morning, and I had no desire to talk to anyone, to see anyone. I just wanted to get through breakfast and then get through my conference, which I was doing the resident track. And so a few minutes later, though, as I was eating my breakfast and drinking my coffee, an older gentleman sat down next to me and starts talking to me. He was very nice, and there was nothing wrong with the interaction at all, but I was in such a space in my brain where I was just like, can this stop? Like, I really don't know what I'm saying to him. But throughout the conversation, it was very much like, oh, where are you from? What year are you in residency? What are your plans for the future, etc., so on and so forth. And it somehow came out that I was doing this fellowship in perioperative management, which was in California. Comes out that he's also in California, but he's in Southern California. And somewhere in my foggy brain, I forgot to ask him like where and what exactly he was doing. And not until the end of the conversation did I wake up enough to be like, so what institution are you at? Okay, like, and what exactly do you do there? In my mind, I was like, maybe he was sent here to gather more information to form a perioperative service or something. Like, I just figured he was, some random person. Turns out he's the chairman of the Department of Anesthesia at his institution. And I was like, oh, literally, like, I don't think anything could have hidden the shock from my face. He looked a little amused as well. I must have said something right, though, in that conversation with him, because before we got up to go to our respective lectures, he wrote his email on a napkin, gave it to me, and said, let me know when you're in California. Fast forward a year, I start my fellowship, and from the very beginning, everyone is like, where are you going? What's your plan for the future? And I literally was like, I haven't even finished unpacking yet. Why are you asking me this question? How are you supposed to decide? And the funny thing is I moved to California without ever thinking that I would actually stay here. And so for me, I was very confused. I was like, well, I had no plans to stay, but then again, where am I gonna go? Like, none of my friends from residency where I trained in New York stayed in New York. So there's nobody there that I knew. And I knew already that I didn't want to practice medicine in New York City. And then I was like, East Coast? My parents are in the Midwest. I really have no interest in being in the Midwest, especially because with my career goals, I very much wanted to do anesthesia and administration. I wanted to start out that way. I didn't want to just start out doing clinical medicine and have to work my way up. I wanted to enter by doing clinical and administration. And I felt at the time, the more I thought about it, because I was forced to think about it, I felt at the time that maybe my best opportunity for doing both was going to be greatest in California. So I made a decision to stay in California. And the only string I had to tug on, and I didn't want to stay where my fellowship was because cost of living was very expensive. It wasn't really a place that I ever saw myself staying. So let me see what else is out there. The only line I had to tug on was that napkin, which I still had. This was a year later. I emailed him. He remembered me somehow by some miracle. And then next thing you know, I was applying, I was interviewing, and then I got an offer. And in my mind, I was like, the way it happened that I met him was so random. At the same time, it had to be meant to be. I wasn't even planning on going to that conference. I was actually very much against going to that conference. It kind of ended up being forced on me. I took the opportunity to go simply because I wanted a break from residency. I wanted to take a weekend where I could just relax. And yes, with the conference, you have to go to lectures and you have these obligations, but at the same time, it's very laid back. You're not having to work. You can relax a little bit and socialize a little bit. And my friend was coming with me. And so that weekend was very much for me to just get away. And the next thing you know, I'm having this conversation at breakfast, and I've got a potential job offer for the future. And I think the lesson here is that anything can happen at any time. And even when things don't go as you plan them, you need to stay open to the fact that maybe they're not going as planned because there's something else that you're meant to do. I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. Things may seem random, but at the same time, when you look back, you're like, oh no, that was meant to be. I'm here in my town now, and it's great. I've met some great people. My job actually isn't that bad in terms of my work hour obligations, in terms of my pay, in terms of what I'm allowed to do. I work clinically, I work administratively as well. And compared to some of my other friends in academics, my hours are flexible and I'm happy. And so it's very hard to complain. On top of that, I'm living in Southern California. So as you can see in all my videos, there's sunlight everywhere. I can't escape it. And so it's very hard to complain, and I'm very, very grateful. And I can only thank myself every day too that despite the fact that I didn't want to be there, despite the fact that I was so tired and I didn't want to make conversation, some part of me was open to something happening. And I didn't push away the opportunity that was sitting in front of me. I wasn't really into making conversation, but I did it. And, I didn't screw it up. And I think that's the take home here. Even if things aren't going as you plan them, you need to stay open to the fact that maybe something else is meant to be. and you just never know. And so, yeah, I don't know if you guys have had similar stories or similar paths in life where you were planning on one thing but were forced into something else, or something else happened, and then you realize that it all happened for the best. For anyone who's looking for a job currently and is can't figure it out or doesn't quite know what to do, or maybe you were planning on something and it didn't go as you wanted, there's a reason for it. You might not figure that out right now, but that time will come where you look back and you're like, okay, this is where I was meant to be, and I'm here because things did not go as I originally planned, and that's okay. I would love to hear your guys' stories if you have them. If you want to, you can message here on YouTube, or if you want to take a look at the full post as well for this story on ub3.com and leave your comments there. I would love to hear them. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Stay warm, and I will talk to you later.